The St. Louis Blues fell 4-2 to the Vegas Golden Knights last night, and this has me concerned about the Dallas Stars tomorrow.
Hey, this is Brayden Chen. Subscribe to Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, we have an episode that is needed because we do need to talk about how the loss to the Golden Knights last night doesn't make me feel any better about this next stretch of games against really good teams such as the Dallas Stars who the Blues face tomorrow. The Blues need to sell at the trade deadline. The trade deadline is March 7th. It is approaching kind of quickly, so the Blues need to prepare for that. And of course, like always, my personal favorite segment, my Friday segment, Are We Feeling Blue? Where we discuss if this was a good week or was this a bad week for the St. Louis Blues. We do have a lot to get into on today's episode of Locked On Blues, but I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, let's just say it for how it is. I knew the moment Mark Stone scored with 19 seconds into the contest that it was done. I just felt like the Blues didn't have the momentum that they needed. And Vegas obviously is a much better team than the Blues. There is no doubt about that. But I was a little bit discouraged by how the Blues' defense looked. I was discouraged about, honestly, the lack of momentum, right? And that's something I talk about a lot. You can lose. I'm not saying that, I'm going to be upset after every Blues loss, but if you're putting in 120% on the ice, I'm going to say, okay, that happens, but I liked what the team did here. Last night, I just did not get that same energy, and it was just a brutal game to watch. But I think what's important to note, too, is that the two players that scored last night for the Blues, Jordan Kyrou with a nice feed from Holloway, and then Robert Thomas with a nice feed from Bushi, made me feel better about our offense. While I don't think the offense had the best performance last night, right? I do feel better that my top two players offensively were able to get goals against a really good Vegas team and a really good Vegas defense. And I think that, you can say what you want about the game. The Blues didn't get that many shots. They only had 17 shots on goal while the VGK had 31. The Blues had a lot of hits though last night, 29 compared to Vegas's 15. But right now you have a player like Thomas Hertl. He did score on the empty net. Joel Hofer was in net, by the way. And now he has 4 straight games with a goal. So I think it just comes down to the fact that the St. Louis Blues are battling against a team that just has a lot of momentum. And I know that the Blues did beat the Golden Knights in the shootout previously earlier this week, but the Golden Knights still came back from a 2-goal deficit. And that's something that I talked about a lot, is that the Golden Knights just have this fire and have this momentum in them. And that's something that the Blues just need to do. And I always like to maybe, I don't know, look at the positives, right? And I like to look at things maybe not necessarily as, I don't know, like as negative as it can be. But last night, it just got pretty bad because last night, the NHL also did announce that Oscar Sundqvist was fined $2,000 for embellishment during the game. And honestly, at the end of the day, this was the second time this has happened to him. And it's the NHL Rule 64, diving embellishment. And it's designed to bring attention um, and more seriously to players who repeatedly dive, right? Which is not good. So again, Second time this season. Not really a big fan of that, but it happens. But I think that just kind of goes to show with maybe some of the frustration about the game last night and kind of more of what went wrong exactly. And I think too, when you really have to maybe look at last night's game, right? Um, oh no, never mind. The embellishment was against Utah. I don't know why I was like, wait. I was like, I didn't think I saw that last night. Um, but you really do need to ask yourself what exactly is going on. And I just personally don't know. I think that this team has something that works. When they get hot and it's fun to watch. But they need to work on their special teams, like their power play, their penalty kill, even. And Dallas is good in both of those areas, and they know how to execute that well, which is why for me, I think that I just need to see more consistency. And that just gets me so I don't know. It just gets me kind of like frustrated about the path that this team is going on. I mean, halfway through the second period, the Blues only had 4 shots on goal last night, which is not good. And last night, I was a little confused about why the Blues challenged the last goal because, like, there was, like, what, 20 seconds left? Like, it's but whatever. I mean, it's just typical, St. Louis Blues, and the officiating sucked, but I don't think that was the real issue, right? Um, yeah, but the Blues just couldn't get any shots on goal. So that's why it was like a little bit funny in a sense that the Blues actually did get 2 goals. And like I'm not like mad, right? I'm not that mad. I mean, I don't know. But I feel like Jordan Kyrou doesn't get the respect that he does deserve. I mean, right now he has more goals than Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, McKinnon. So I feel like at least for him, I don't know, just that's probably good. But Robert Thomas's game, like besides the goal, it just was not good. And I know that I try to be positive, and I know I try to look at the positives on this podcast. I do that a lot, and I'm fully aware of it. But last night, he just did not play a good game, and I just don't understand. Like Justin Folk does not look good. Okay, like I'm sorry, but that's how it is. I think that on the power play 1, um, he is the outlier, right? Like, he's the one that just looks the most out of it. Um, so, again, like, Nathan Walker, huge fan of him, as I said, but it just doesn't make any sense why you have the second line with Shen, Broberg, not Broberg. Why did I say Broberg? Dylan Holloway. Why? Because Broberg plays defense. Sorry, like it's Friday, but I'm ranting. You have Shen, you have Holloway, and then you have Kyrou. They look the best on the ice. They look the best, and then you have I don't know what to call it. You just go and you drop down, and you can't play that way against um. You just can't play that way. Like I'm sorry, like you really can't. I can't stand Mark Stone, by the way. Like, it was just so bad last night. But I love how Holloway and Kyrie do play together. But oh my goodness. I saw the frustration though for Mountie last night, and I do not blame him whatsoever. Um, but I mean, it just seems to me too, and I'm not blaming Joel Hofer in any way, but giving up that first shot on goal too, just it's not acceptable. Like the whole team just needs to do better. It just was not good last night. And that's my rant. I know I was ranting. I know that I'm, frustrated. And I think that every single person here is frustrated too that's watching. But again, I wanted to vent. That's what I did because it has been absolutely infuriating to watch this team. Also, last night, a celebrity was at the Blues game, by the way. World of T-shirts was there. And that was probably the most positive thing that I've seen people post about last night's game was meeting Josh Block. So I'm just saying. But we do need to talk about what the Blues need to do at this trade deadline a little bit more because I have some new thoughts after last night's game. But first, I want to tell you about my friends over at Gametime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or the WWE. One of my favorite memories was attending Monday Night Raw last year, and the energy and excitement were unforgettable. Yeet. Now, Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets for Friday night SmackDown using my Game Time app. And with Game Time Picks, I found amazing deals. I could even see the view from my seat before buying. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all in pricing shows the total cost upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. We have talked a lot about the trade deadline. And I think that this is something that is going to be an ongoing conversation between you and I here on Locked On Blues. But I want to give a shout out to the Drop Hockey Show, who tuned into yesterday's episode of Locked On Blues. And I talked about what Doug Armstrong should do at the trade deadline, right? And this is what they said to me. Only veterans like Saad should be traded. You shouldn't make a trade just to sneak in the playoffs. This team is not making a cup run. And exactly. And I think that my concern is that Doug Armstrong is going to try so hard to get this team playoff bound, even though they're not a playoff bound type of team. I think that realistically speaking, you should be getting rid of the older players. I'm sorry, but I don't see Justin Folk being here past the deadline. I don't think I just don't. But I also think like players like Saad will be gone. And I do agree with that. It is just one of those situations where you have to also think, okay, what teams will want them or be invested in them? Will you get anything back in return? Or is this purely just to free up some cap space? And I think just going in with the mentality of, okay, maybe you can get some like fourth round draft picks, right? Something like that. But go in with the mentality of, okay, this is going to free up some draft space. But I like what the Drop Hockey Show had to say because it is so smart. It's so intelligent because of a couple of reasons. And I'm going to tell you why. Because collectively, the entire fan base knows that it makes no logical sense to buy at the trade deadline and try to push to go into the playoffs. It doesn't. But we also are aware enough to know that Doug Armstrong still might try to do this, which is why it's really frustrating as a Blues fan at the moment because every single person that has any sense about hockey knows that finishing in the middle is one of the worst things that can happen for your team. Because A, you're not going to get a good draft pick, and B, you're not going to get a good draft pick. And C, you're not going to get a good draft pick. Like, I don't get how Doug Armstrong doesn't realize that by now. And that is the infuriating part about this. I mean, this year's draft is not as talented as last year's draft, and that's just the truth. And I was talking to Sportsology, Russ Cohen, who does the Locked On Flyers podcast. He's also a prospect expert. And he was telling me, he was like, hey, listen, the best guys in this year's draft will be within the top 8 picks. The St. Louis Blues should be getting a top 8 pick, but no, what Doug Armstrong's going to do is he's going to bring in somebody like a Morgan Frost or whoever, Keandre Miller, whatever, and he's going to try to make this team playoff bound, even though that's not what the best thing for this team is. I say blow it up this offseason. I just don't see the point in doing that during the season besides selling. And what I mean by blow it up, I mean that's when you bring in the new players and you kind of like revamp the team. But it's a very interesting approach. Okay. And I'll explain why. Teams like the New York Rangers, they made a lot of trades this season already. I know I mentioned Keandre Miller because I am selfishly wanting him on this team just because he is such a great defenseman that I feel like hasn't been playing to his potential, but he definitely has the ability. Um, but they made a lot of trades. Obviously, they traded their captain and did a bunch of things. They were not playing good hockey for quite a while, and now I feel like they're kind of playing decent hockey again. But they did it in the beginning of the season when they kind of made a bunch of moves. Right now, it's like past the midway point. So I feel like it's a little too late to take that gamble. I think that the Blues should be having guys play up. Like Dvorsky, I know I mentioned him and people were like, oh my gosh, he's not ready yet. Let him develop. Okay. Well, again, this is not a playoff kind of bound team. So what is the harm in having Dvorsky play at this level to get a feel for it? Even if it's a couple games and then send him back down to the Thunderbirds, but at least let him experience some competitive, professional NHL hockey. I just don't see why we're not giving him that opportunity. I mean, he has been playing phenomenal with the Thunderbirds. And I know I'm a big AHL fan and I talk about, I talk about it sometimes on this podcast, but this is a blues central kind of podcast. So I like to just kind of keep it blues, blues, blues. But this season, he's played 33 games, 12 goals, 14 assists, 26 points total. That to me is good. And I feel like we're not utilizing players like him. I mean, honestly, he was the 10th overall pick in the 2023 draft, and he's been doing nothing but good things since. I mean, I just don't understand why we don't give him that chance. I just don't. But again, he's literally an all-star for the AHL. Like, you get what I'm saying? So it just doesn't make sense to me why he isn't being utilized. And that is a player that you should be, really preparing to have in your system for a while. And I know that Armstrong said after training camp, oh no, we're going to work on him. He's going to be here. We're doing what's best for him. Okay, awesome. But I also want him to get that experience so that way he knows what to work on. Secondly, I think that when it comes to selling, I did mention Jordan Binnington. I don't think the Blues should sell him at the deadline, but I do think that maybe this offseason you can look into what you would get in return from him. He's like 31. I'm not saying that's old by any means, but you definitely, you have a guy within Joel Hofer that could be here for a while, but I'm not writing him off yet. I think my point is if the Blues can get something really valuable from maybe making a trade, I would not be upset. I mean, I would because I love Binner, but I understand too at the same time. Selfishly, he probably wants to be on a team that is going to go to the playoffs, right? And secondly, you want as a team to be able to get back some good assets, and there's not a lot of players on the Blues that can do that for you. And that's the reality. When I think about the Blues and I think about players that can give you a lot of value if you sell them, I think of Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, Jordan Binnington, maybe, I don't know. That's really it. Um, I am sorry. Like, I was gonna say Broberg, and then I was like, I don't know. I don't think he's gonna give that much value. But yeah, in terms of value, I just don't really see that happening. But anyways, that is my little rant on what the Blues should do at the deadline. Now I'm gonna do my favorite Friday assignment called Are We Feeling Blue? Was this a good week or bad week for the St. Louis Blues? But first, I'm gonna talk to you about my friends over at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets every game is so exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings, whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitements during the playoffs. FanDuel has you covered. And personally, if I were you right now, I would take the Eagles. They're -6.5 against the Washington Commanders in the NFC Championship game. I also would take the Bills money line so you can parlay this over the Kansas City Chiefs. It's everybody versus the Chiefs, baby. So this is what you need to do. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. My favorite Friday segment is Are We Feeling Blue, where we discuss, was this a good week or was this a bad week for the St. Louis Blues? And I think my response to you is going to kind of be expected. I would say this was a bad week for the St. Louis Blues. Yes, the Blues did have that shootout win against the VGK on Monday, but last weekend they did lose 4-2 to the Utah Hockey Club. The Blues also had a 2-goal lead against the Golden Knights that they slipped away in the final frame. And then finally last night was an ugly 4-2 loss. I am not feeling good about this team. I am seeing flaws when it comes to this team. And I just think that this Blues team showed me their true colors in a sense, playing wise, that they're just a below average hockey team. I'm frustrated, and I'm sure you are frustrated too. But that frustration is valid because the Blues, for the life of them, cannot start a win streak. Last weekend, they had the opportunity after they defeated the Flames on both of those games that they played against them. I know, strange schedule. And then lost to Utah. So again, there goes another potential win streak down the drain. And I also think, too, knowing how competitive these next games are for the Blues, I don't feel good about it. They have the Stars tomorrow, the Canucks on Monday, the Avalanche on Friday, and then next Sunday they have Utah again. Then they have Edmonton, the Panthers. The next easy-ish game that they have is hosting the Blackhawks on February 8th before they go into that hiatus with the Four Nation face-off. So, yes, it is a grueling schedule, which makes me kind of come to the reality of, yep, the playoff dream is over. And I think it's okay to have that sense of reality too. And I think that this week was very grounding for me. I was a little optimistic, right? I think after the 2 wins against the Flames, I felt this sense of confidence. I'm like, you know what? Maybe this team does have what it takes. Maybe it's been just like a little bit of a difficult stretch lately. Maybe, things just have not been aligning properly. But now I am just fully in the mindset of, oh my goodness, this is just not a playoff team. And this is not just a playoff team. This isn't even an average team. This is a below average team because this team in the very beginning of the season, they had fight in them. They were the comeback kids, and it was fun to see them come back, win games, and really put their entire efforts in. But lately, I feel like when the momentum does not go their way, they're unable to get it back. And that to me is a concern. I don't think that this is the worst team in the NHL, obviously, but I do feel like this is a bottom 10 team in the NHL, which again goes to my whole entire point and my frustrations about why I do think that the Blues need to maybe just begin selling and just not purposely tank, right? But just kind of come to the senses that they should not strive to bring in players just so they have a chance of going to the playoffs. But that's just my 2 cents. I will be very interested and curious to see what Doug Armstrong does. All right. So I do want to tell you a few things about Locked On Blues. Make sure to subscribe here on YouTube at Locked On Blues so you can stay up to date with all things St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Also, every single day, Monday through Friday, there is a new episode. So we do talk everything St. Louis Blues. We talk prospects. We talk about what is currently going on within the games itself and so much more. So again, make sure to stay up to date on that. Also on Twitter at Locked On Blues. So much going on with the St. Louis Blues, and it's only going to get crazier as that March 7th trade deadline is approaching quicker and quicker. I will talk to you next time, and like always, let's go Blues.